Fáilte Road Galéir. 100,000 welcomes to the real capital of Ireland, the People's Republic of Cork, to the 3rd Biennial Child Protection and Welfare Social Work Conference, and of course to the Jazz Weekend. And you're all very welcome, and a special word of welcome to our very first Minister of Children and Youth Affairs, and to all our guest speakers and contributors to the concurrent sessions. The fact that we are holding a conference such as this, Child Protection and Welfare Social Work Conference, is a statement in itself. All is not well in Irish society. Was it ever? As we speak, the counting of votes has begun. We will, by the end of the day, know who will be the 9th President of the Republic of Ireland. Ireland, a republic. In 1916, Padraig Pearse from the steps of Dublin's GPO read out the proclamation. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation, cherishing all the children of the nation equally. Cherishing all the children of the nation equally. We look back over the decades, especially the period covered by the Ryan Report, and we see what Ireland did with the perceived ills, inequalities, and social embarrassments of the time. We picked them up and locked them away in orphanages, industrial schools, Magdalen laundries, mental institutions. And all this while 99% of the population devoutly attended their churches and to their religious duties. Christianity very often without a Christ. Christ locked up, hidden away. And often we look back at these times and we ask ourselves, what were they thinking? Politicians, judiciary, clergy, academics, teachers, doctors, media, professionals like us, society at large. Did not anyone see what was going on? Did not anyone cry stop? That was then, and this is now. And are we so different from the people of the period covered by the Ryan Report? Are we? Not a day passes by when there is not coverage in some media outlet on child protection and family welfare related matters. But child protection and family welfare, the activity all of us are interested and engaged in, and why we're here today, does not, of course, like everything else, take place in a vacuum. There is always a context, economic, political, cultural, and social. In our Ireland of today, are all our citizens treated equally? Are all our children cherished? Over 450,000 with no job. Ireland of the 100,000 welcomes has become the Ireland of the 100,000 goodbyes, as far too many sons and daughters follow in the steps of their parents and grandparents, as Ireland of 2011 cannot be home for them. Our prisons have never been as full. In 1961, the prison population was 1,828. Today, 4,260, 300% increase. With an overrepresentation of young males from poorer neighbourhoods, poor educational achievements with little or no job prospects. Many with learning, mental health, and addiction difficulties. We have been involved with many of them. We will be involved with their children. And this young male population is commonly known as hoodies. And recently, some politicians were advocating for legislation to ban the wearing of such hoodies, especially indoors. Did any politician ever think of banning the wearing of suits. After all, it was the men and women in suits that have bankrupted our republic, losing our economic sovereignty and all that goes with that. Education is often presented as the key that unlocks the door to possibility and choices. This is denied to far too many people. Figures relating to third-level institutions reveal that Middle and Upper Ireland are overrepresented. Investment per student ratio is highest in third level and least in first level. Disadvantage begins. There is no shortage of research to show that the early years are the most critical in a person's life and development. The state continues to invest over 100 million euros in private secondary schools, while much needed SNAs and traveller support teachers are withdrawn. State-sponsored elitism, inequality, privilege. Suicide rates are worryingly high, with at least 12 to 15 people dying each week. Many of them young males, a people disenfranchised without hope. We are bombarded with advertisements in the media highlighting the importance of paying your TV license. Don't pay it and you run the risk of going to jail. The fee is badly needed to cover the exaggerated, inflated salaries of our celebrity media personnel. And what if the money spent on this advertisement campaign was spent on encouraging fathers to look after their offspring, act responsibly? A license is needed to turn on the telly, own a dog, but not father a child. All our children cherished equally. We are indeed in an era of social crisis. To borrow from another infamous era, GUBU, grotesque, unbelievable, bizarre, unprecedented. And we run the risk, as was done in the period of the Ryan Report, individualizing the crisis, demonizing the parent, and not seeing the crisis for what it really is: economic, structural, cultural, political. Protecting children post-Ryan, real or virtual change in an era of social crisis. At today's conference, we will hopefully discuss and debate key and relevant current topics. We will ask ourselves some very pertinent questions. French philosopher Voltaire once said, "Judge a man by his questions rather than his answers." In the period covered by the Ryan Report, societal problems were dealt with by hiding them away in big institutions. Has referral to child protection teams become the modern version of this? Last year, well over 20,000 referrals were received by child protection and welfare teams all over the country. 2011 numbers will significantly exceed this. Let's refer everything to child protection seems to be the message given and received. As a result, many child protection teams, the length and breadth of Ireland, from Donegal to Dungarvan, Kerry to Kildare, Limerick to Louth, have become overstretched, individual workers overburdened and burnt out, expected to do more with less. Can this trend realistically continue? The majority of cases being referred to child protection teams come under the classification of neglect. And the majority of these are of people unable rather than unwilling to parent adequately, unable to surmount significant life challenges posed by addiction, mental health, learning difficulties, own family history. Why is there so much neglect in Ireland? For the past 10 years, there has been a steady increase in the number of children being admitted to care, coinciding with the rise of the Celtic Tiger, which was meant to lift all boats. Should this trend continue? Care, which ought to be the last resort, is often the only when available. Childcare is fast becoming a multi-million euro business and industry. Is this a healthy development? Should the provision of care, a basic human right, be the subject of profitable endeavour? This is the age of inquiries, with the focus very often, almost exclusively, on those practitioners at the bottom of the hierarchy, where pressure is greatest and power is least. Are there lessons to be learned? We seem to run the risk of going from one extreme to the other. With the establishment of HICWA, inspection regulation is on the increase. Can HICWA be reasonable, balanced? Can we learn from our friends across the water? They have travelled where we are beginning to furrow. Can we avoid reinventing the wheel? Are we becoming too bureaucratic, spending more time at the desk, less time with the child? Are we becoming obsessed with doing the thing correctly rather than doing the correct thing? For decades, Children and Family Services was lost in the giant that is the Department of Health, and in latter years in its offspring, the HSE. Will the project to develop a standalone Children and Family Service progress? When? Rumour has it that the fighting over the spoils has begun. By the time it leaves the HSE, will it be so stripped of its assets and personnel as to render it toothless? These and many more questions are at the centre of today's conference. Change, real or virtual? All is not doom and gloom. Change is possible and change can be real. Although the challenges facing society, facing child protection and family welfare are truly enormous, the opportunities are equally significant. There are real differences between now and the period covered by the Ryan Report. For example, in that period, we did not have the Child Care Act. We did not have dedicated child protection and family welfare departments. We did not have the promise of a constitutional referendum to guarantee the right of the child. We did not have a department and a minister dedicated exclusively to children and youth. And we are delighted to have with us today, to officially open our conference, our very first Minister of Children and Youth Affairs. Minister Fitzgerald, thank you very much for coming.